Hello and welcome back to the Enneagram Edge. I'm Marco Zare. I'm your host today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited about today's episode. It's about the unifying leader under stress when harmony turns into disengagement. So, if you're known as a leader who's steady and calm and inclusive and able to really bring people together, this episode is for you. So in the Enneagram, the unifying leader corresponds to type 9. So this style tends to bring stability into a room, diplomacy, and has a really calm, grounded presence that supports everybody. Unifying leaders are really reassuring and they know how to create harmony and reduce tension for people. So at their best, they're really stabilizing and wise and inclusive and quietly powerful. But guess what? Under pressure, these same strengths can shift into stress. And when they're stressed out, what does it start to look like? Well, guess what? It starts to look like avoidance, and they start to minimize, they start disengaging from what's going on around them. They start numbing out, losing their voice, over-accommodating and people-pleasing. So that's what today's episode's about. Today we're going to go more deeply into the strengths of the unifying leader and specifically look at this core tension between the stability that they desire versus disengagement that happens to them under stress. And why this stress leads to conflict avoidance and self-erasure. That's right, they erase themselves. And the leadership cost when harmony starts replacing honesty. And I'm going to cover 2 reset levers that can really restore this grounded, natural presence of this type and help them become more powerful leaders. So, if you tend to smooth things over and go quiet, and you tend to struggle with conflict avoidance, this is the episode for you. Let's dive right in. Let's first go over the unifying leaders' natural strengths. So as I was saying before, they're very gifted. They have this ability to create a steady, calm environment. So when it feels fragmented or reactive or tense, they can bring people together. They can help calm people down. They're really good with negotiations and mediations, and they're good with diplomacy. They have a very high level of empathy for others, and they can merge and really understand where people are coming from. And it helps them see other people's perspective, and it helps them unblock issues or tensions on a team. They often help teams and businesses function more smoothly because they are able to reduce this friction and create more connection. So, when others are escalating things, the unifying leader often asks themselves, okay, how can we bring this back to center? How can we calm down here and really get present to what the truth is instead of being emotional? How can we seek to better understand each other? Right? And what would help everyone here feel more included? Or how do we move forward with more harmony and less conflict? So these are real strengths for any organizations. Specifically in environments that can be chaotic or stressful or polarized, unifying leaders are really deeply needed. They help regulate the emotional tone of the room, and they help people feel safe and secure to be themselves, to speak up, and to collaborate. And they often notice multiple sides of a situation, multiple perspectives, and they can hold different perspectives without becoming reactive. So this allows the team to be more cohesive and more unified. And that's also why they're called the unifying leader. So this episode is not about fixing the unifying leader because they have so many great strengths. It's about really understanding what happens to them though under stress when this core strength can get overused. That's right, because when they become stressed out, what happens is the stability that we love about this type of leader can turn into disengagement. So they can start quietly disconnecting and disengaging from their own voice, their own truth, in order to maintain external peace. So this is what happens. This is what the shift sounds like. They may say to themselves, it's really not worth creating any more tension here. It's not worth making a big deal about this. It's really just fine. This might just go away. Maybe I should just go with what everybody else wants and not rock the boat. Perhaps I'll bring this up later. It's just easier to keep the peace. Those are some of the things that the unifying leader might say to themselves, which keeps them from stepping up to the plate and using their voice. It puts them in a place of disengagement. Now, sometimes, of course, it's wise to not push an issue. Sometimes it's wise to not say something. But the problem is that over time, specifically under sustained stress, this pattern can become a real issue. It can turn into what I'm calling self-abandonment. Instead of speaking up, the unifying leader can actually start losing their voice. In fact, the stress can drive what I'm calling conflict avoidance and loss of voice. So let's talk about what's happening beneath the surface here. Unifying leaders often feel most comfortable in environments that are easygoing, that are relational, where there's harmony and peace, we can go with the flow. And they do not like conflict. They may feel overwhelmed by things that are intense, by pressure or friction. They don't like fights. They don't like people getting upset. And because of this, they can unconsciously start to adapt to other people and their needs and wants and desires to keep things moving smoothly. So under stress, this may not look very dramatic at all. It can be super subtle. They may just say, hey, I don't need to really say anything here. They may just start downplaying things as not important. They may delay hard conversations or conversations that feel difficult. They may stop saying what they really think. And they may merge with the priorities of stronger voices, meaning they may just go with whoever has the loudest voice. They may go along with what other people are saying, while quietly they're disconnected and they don't really agree underneath. So this is what's important to understand here. Because the unifying leader wants to avoid at all cost conflict, this avoidance can look like feeling patient. It can look like flexibility. It can look like keeping the peace. It can look like being easy to work with. But it's actually avoidance. It's not just harmony. So here's the thing to keep in mind. Sometimes harmony is actually disconnection and not necessarily true harmony. It can be a way of reducing the tension that comes from asserting themselves because they don't want to disappoint others. They don't want to risk ruining a relationship. They don't want to risk people getting upset or the team getting out of balance. And that's where this leadership pattern really becomes costly to the team and the organization. Because when you keep smoothing over tension without addressing what is actually going on, your own voice starts to disappear from the room, right? And that's a huge cost. So here's the pattern that this leadership type, the unifying leader, can fall into. From the unifying leader side, it may sound like in their mind, I'm just staying open. I'm just trying to be collaborative and helpful here. I just don't want to overreact. I'm giving space. Does this sound familiar? Something you may have said to yourself if you're a unifying leader? But from the team side, this experience can feel very different. The team can feel like they lack clarity or direction because the leader is not speaking up and using their voice. Like they're delaying decisions that are important because they're not actually moving forward the leader and saying what needs to happen. And the priorities can become unclear because, again, the leader is disengaging and not speaking their truth. And this can cause passive agreement. So the team may feel like, I think the leader's just agreeing here, but doesn't really agree, and they can sense it. So this leader who may be very calm on the outside can start feeling absent on the inside. And people may start to think, what does he or she actually really want? Where are they? Are they really here present with the team? Is she or he agreeing here or just going along with what we want, with our ideas? And they can start thinking, why are we not addressing the actual issue here? Perhaps they may even think, are we keeping the peace at the expense of the progress of the company, at the expense of innovation? So there can be a big ripple over time if the unifying leader does not speak up. And what happens over time is they lose effectiveness. They don't lose effectiveness because they don't care about people. It's because they care too much about people, actually. They lose effectiveness because they care too much about what people think. They become over-accommodating, and harmony replaces honesty. Has this ever happened to you? This is such an important distinction. Your problems, your challenges as a unifying leader come from really not speaking up and being there and engaging. Your calm is not the problem. Your empathy is not the problem. Your stabilizing presence is not the problem. The real issue is maintaining peace, because that becomes more important than using your voice and stating your priorities and speaking your truth. So here's a key reframe for unifying leaders. Harmony is not the same as alignment. Things can look calm on the surface and still be deeply misaligned underneath. And I'm sure you've felt that before. And avoiding tension does not create real unity for the team. It just often delays what really needs to be addressed, those issues that are underneath things and that are creating chaos. Unifying leaders often assume that if conflict appears, something has gone wrong. But often nothing has gone wrong. Sometimes tension is simply what happens when truth enters the room and something needs to be addressed. Sometimes leadership does require discomfort. Sometimes it requires tension. Sometimes it requires disrupting false peace. Sometimes the most unifying thing you can do as a leader is to say something that nobody wants you to say and that nobody likes. This is not about being divisive. This is about true leadership. Real unity is not built on you disappearing. It is built on presence, honesty, and grounded participation and speaking your truth. And sometimes the most mature form of harmony is integrity and speaking up. It's saying, you know what, this really does matter to me. I see this completely different than the rest of the team. I want peace, but not at the cost of what is true. And reminding yourself that your voice matters too. This is not less unifying. This is what true unifying leadership looks like. So here are 2 reset levers that can help you become more powerful as a unifying leader. The first one is name what matters before merging with others. What I mean by that is when unifying leaders are under stress, they tend to disconnect from their own priorities super quickly. And other people's opinions become louder, become more urgent, become more appealing and more important. So the path of least resistance is the one you start to take. So before you adapt to what other people are saying, before you start merging with them, pause and ask yourself, what actually matters to me here right now? What do I actually want? What feels right for me? What feels off for me? What is the truth that I'm trying to minimize here? This matters because if you do not name your own position, then you are going to disappear externally from the conversation. So practical ways to use this reset lever mean that you pause before responding in a meeting to get clarity on what your truth is. Or perhaps even before a meeting, you jot down your opinions that you know you need to tell people, that people need to hear from you. Because honestly, unifying leaders sometimes need extra time to really think about this prior to meeting. Identify one thing that you do want and that other people may not agree with. And ask yourself, what would you say if you were not afraid of creating tension? How would you operate if fear wasn't holding you back, this fear of avoiding conflict? And check whether you're agreeing from a true place of alignment or from a place of trying to keep the peace. So the goal is not to become rigid here. The goal is to stay connected to yourself while remaining connected to other people. This is true presence for the unifying leader. Reset lever number 2. Speak early instead of waiting until disconnection sets in. So this is pretty similar, but the point in this is that unfortunately, unifying leaders often wait too long to say, this isn't working for me. They wait to see how things unfold. They wait for a better moment to speak up. They wait until things feel less comfortable. But oftentimes, this moment doesn't arrive. They're already either shut down, resentful, disconnected, and things are already going awry. Things are not working for the team. So this is why speaking early matters. Speaking early may look like naming a concern when you're feeling it at the beginning instead of it becoming a bigger issue, or saying right away, I have a different perspective in this moment. Or if you're concerned about something, ask for clarification instead of silently going along with it. Voicing a preference before a decision is already made. So getting input before a decision becomes final, and acknowledging tension directly instead of pretending it's not there. And if a decision has been made and you're uncomfortable, the earliest you speak up, the best. So if you already feel like, well, the train's left the station, still go after that train, stop the train. The earlier you stop it, the better. This is not about, again, you becoming confrontational. It's about interrupting the drift that's already started because you have disengaged. So a few questions here that you can use that will help you implement this reset lever. So what needs to be said now instead of later? Where am I hoping that this issue just resolves itself without my participation? What am I avoiding because I'm afraid to rock the boat? What would grounded honesty really look like in this situation? Sometimes the most powerful thing a unifying leader can do or say is that they disagree. That's right. And this can help them actually create deeper connection where people on the team can completely believe in them and their leadership Because people know when you're not being real. People know when you're not speaking your truth, when there's something that doesn't feel right. So, what does growth really look like for the unifying leader? Growth is not about becoming less kind or less collaborative or less calm. It's really about learning to be present, to stay connected to the team without disappearing, without disengaging, without losing your voice. It's about building that capacity to tolerate tension and disagreement without automatically trying to smooth it over. It's about recognizing that under stress, your system may naturally move towards comfort, numbing itself out, and accommodating and people pleasing. And it's about choosing conscious participation instead. Again, this may look like clear preferences, more direct communication, being honest earlier in the conversation and in the decision making, less over adapting, and being more vocal about your own priorities. And most importantly, staying engaged when discomfort arises. Doing this will help deepen your connections with others. Because leadership is not about creating peace, it's about building a kind of trust, right? Where others know that you are truly present, you are truly in alignment. And that requires your voice, that requires your presence. So if this episode resonated with you, here's a question to reflect on this week. What might I be preserving? No, where might I be preserving harmony at the expense of my own voice? So again, where might I be preserving harmony at the expense of my own voice? Another great question you could ask yourself is, what would it look like to stay present and speak honestly before disengagement sets in? So remember, your calm and your diplomacy is your strength. Your steadiness and your inclusive presence are your strength. And your ability to connect to others is your strength. And my simple invitation for you is to remember to not let stress turn this calm presence into disengagement. So it's to stay connected, to speak sooner, and let your presence include your voice. It is so important to the organization and to your teams. So if you'd like support in handling stress and burnout more effectively, you can download my burnout code in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please follow this podcast and share it with other unifying leaders or other leaders out there who could use it too. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you were here today, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Enneagram Edge soon. Bye for now.